Hello and welcome to Kitbashed Contenders episode 5. Today we'll be catching up with our contenders to work out what they've been working on and what their vision was for turning a Hobgrots Sprue into something entirely new. When I set this competition, I was expecting medium standard work, someone to phone it in, someone to be sick, late, maybe. What I've ended up with is 5 excellent contenders who are all pushing amazing conversions forwards in ways I could not have expected. I've been humbled by the work they're doing and amazed by their imaginations. So let's move on to the questions and find out how they've been working this week. Welcome one and all. So the mystery sprue revealed as Hobgrots, what were your initial impressions of the sprue and the sculpts involved?
Whew. Well, I mean, I know I'm familiar with the Dominion kit, having played with some of the box, but I didn't actually keep that half. I split it with a friend. So it was kind of fun to have a better look at them and have a little kind of check on some of the details and what kind of pieces we had there.
So when I first discovered that the Sprue was going to be Hobgrots, I was quite excited because I already seen that scope and the possibilities of it. So I had some ideas of what I wanted to do, and I had some ideas on how to work with it. So I was quite happy with it, to be honest.
Right, so Hobgrots. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of Gloomspite Gits, so I've already got a lot of experience with regular grots. Hobgrots are a little bit taller, a little bit meaner, and my first thoughts were excitement. My first feelings were definitely excitement. I was trying to think about how I could create something that could fit into my Gloomspite Gits army. Why would a Hobgrot be with regular grots? Them being a little bit meaner, what does that actually mean for what the sculpt looks like? And how can I get it to match a little bit more closely with the stuff I've got right now? So lots of ideas right off the bat.
My initial impressions of getting a Hobgrot Sprue, as you can see here, which Ricky sent us, was, well, they're amongst the most diminutive creatures available in the Age of Sigmar, and we were tasked with making a hero, so I thought that would provide a very interesting challenge. I think that I've picked up the Dominion box previously, so I've seen them before, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But I really like their armor details. I think they have really they're sort of it's like Chaos Dwarfs in the fiction. I forget, but that I really like their armor plates, and I want to try and use those as much as I could.
I thought very hard about what I could do with it, because looking at the sculpt, as it is a Hobgrot, being smaller than an orc size, it would throw up some challenges with scale. Normally, when I look at a conversion, the scale is the important thing as to how things can come together. And where it's just that slight bit smaller, it looked super detailed, but super fine. So knowing that the scale was going to be possibly an issue started ruling things in and out for me. But the sculpt's very detailed, even for 2-part push fit models. I was quite pleased and surprised at how they were. The heads were smaller than I was expecting, but they are very, very nice little kits.
So have any of you worked with Hobgrots or anything similar in the past?
Yeah. So obviously, grots, big passion of mine. That feels weird to say. I love a goblin. So the Hobgrots, it's similar, but there are some fundamental differences. Like I said, they're a bit meaner. If you compare the Cruel Boys stuff with Gloomspite Gits stuff, everything's got spikes and 7 heads attached to it. So I'm gonna sand down the edges a little bit. But I suppose actually I'll save that for the next question. So
So in the past, I bought a few of them, and I tried to recreate, kind of, either a gut runner or a sky acolyte. So just adding a few bits and bobs from Skaven just to create that imagery, because I think that they work quite fine, and because of their design, they can work across different races and different types of like models. So that's really good.
I have never touched a Hobgrot model before this. Before everything came around, the only thing about that size that I'd dealt with was either 40k Gretchen, or I did deal with some Ratlings, and I have done Halfling Mordheim team, like Warband, and that's about it. But nothing with this size, scale, and with how fine it was either.
Not the Hobgrots specifically, although they did feel kind of like Fire Slayers because they're that slightly smaller scale, and like swapping the weapons and stuff and trying to get the poses felt kind of like that.
I have. On the subject of Chaos Dwarves, so I picked up the Dominion box kit as a sort of mourning gift. I lost my cat, poor little bastard. He died, and I decided I need something to do with my time. So I pre-ordered Dominion in a fit of pique, and so I had all those lovely Stormcasts, which I'm still sort of working through. But also I had these Hobgrots, and I haven't worked out what to do with the orcs yet. Don't know. They're a bit funny looking, but these lads, for my lot, what I did was I sculpted beards and long hair onto them and made them into little Chaos Dwarves. They were Chaos Dwarves who were using Hobgrot weapons and grenades, because I didn't have a lot of other options. Mostly I play 40k, also I collect 40k, so I didn't have many things to equip them with. But I found they were kind of grotty, but they were grubby and unpleasant looking, and I really liked the idea of Chaos Dwarves that like weren't necessarily that sort of imperious. What's the place they were from? Begins with a B. Babylonian style of thing, but more sort of scrappy and living underground and mining explosives out of explosive mines.
What challenge have you faced working the sprue or the base size involved in this contest?
Well, the models are the same on there, which is a challenge. So that did give me the opportunity to get, as I mentioned, the armor earlier. I was able to get more pieces of armor than your standard Hobgrot was wearing. And what was charming about having one sprue, you can see I've left. Is it going to show? Yeah, you can see that. I've left most of the bodies on there, but I've cut up all the legs, just really messed them up. Because that's where the armor plates were. But yeah, there's not a great deal of variety in terms of weapons and in terms of equipment, and honestly, in terms of poses. That a lot of them are doing that to show off what weapons they've got, and so I wanted to try and keep to the shape of the Hobgrot as much as possible and have it still really identifiable as a Hobgrot in the final build. So I made some compromises. Whereas normally I would have gone a bit wild, and also I didn't scratch build nothing. I've been scratch building for the last about 6 months, and I just wanted to make things with nice sculpted parts that were made by professionals.
It's been quite difficult. I'm wanting to use some parts like the ropes, but the ropes are very, very fine. That one mistake and they will snap. So I'm putting off doing anything with those, if I do anything with them at all. One of the challenges with the sprue and coming up with ideas is also the metal armor plating, where it is integral to the front of the model, and some of them also have them on the backs. It limits or it restricts what you do with it, or you have to tackle it head on and scrape bits off or completely omit bits.
So far, none, though I did have to do cut a little bit some of the parts and some of the legs that are attached to the armor and all of that, but that was the most challenging aspect of it. All in all, I think it's a lovely sprue to work with.
Yeah, so my first idea, then the thing I ended up going with was something silly. I remember saying in the first interview I wanted to do something a bit silly. So that required sanding off the edges. The Hobgrots have got quite mean faces and spiky helmets and pointy knives and grenades. So I thought, what can I swap their weapons with to make them seem a little bit, I don't know, a little bit sillier, something to fit in with the theme a bit better of Gloomspite Gits, but also maintain that kind of edge, like this guy's a bit bigger and tougher and meaner than a regular grot.
Well, initially, you open the box and you've got this sprue with 5 figures on it. I'm like, well, this is great. I know where I'm going with this straight away. And then actually I didn't, because there were a couple of pieces missing. A couple of them only had 1 leg. And there were a couple of armor plates and stuff that were obviously split on the different troop pieces. So that was like, guess I'll have to play with this a little bit. So I figured I could probably find some donors to like fill out the 5 guys and try and make them complete. And that's where it started going off the rails a little bit.
Without further delay, let's see what you've all been working on this week and hear your thoughts on how we're moving forwards.
So part of my idea, I've been working through some bits and pieces to work on scale, and I did think about doing a hybrid between a Hormagaunt and the Hobgrot, which was the idea that I'd given to one of my friends at the hobby club that I go to. So I was going down the route, what is small, what works, and I thought back to my Halfling warband, and I thought, what is cool for a Halfling? I've already done an Assassin, and I thought maybe a Swashbuckler. So I've started working through something very different theme to what I normally do, very different scale, and I started with this, which actually started as a crow from the Garden of Moor kit, and converting its head with some green stuff. And it's probably the smallest ever conversion I have made, where I've taken the main pose of the Hobgrot and ignores the front piece completely, so that I don't have to deal with the armor plating that I had the problem with, nor do I have to worry about the any of the particular ropey bits that were a problem. It's straight away in here. I've also got a bottle from Pistoliers that I've used as a peg leg to make it a bit more swashbuckly and a little bit less ramshackle and destruction looking. But yeah, I'll leave till later the reveal of how he's going to look with his resplendent hat and his face. I am not the best sculptor in the world. I have gone ahead and I have bodged a lot of bits. I will normally use green stuff with a sculpting tool and lick the sculpting tool as I go. A lot of people will use Vaseline, a lot of people will use other agents for it, but little bits, little and often, and giving it time to cure is the most important thing on this. So the clothes and the cloth you can easily get away with. The stomach was quite difficult, and back on the parrot from before, getting that small and those bits of details to suggest what you're wanting is difficult. But if you've got a couple of nights or a few nights to put into it, doing some bits little and often will give it plenty of time to cure, and will give you the option for results. And if you don't like it, it's not really going to adhere too well to the below layer of green stuff, so you can potentially remove bits without damaging really what you've done before.
So my concept for this model was the Hobgrots, as I mentioned on the previous stream, the Hobgrots are in fact, all of the cruel boys, which is a silly name, but all of the cruel boys have this great fighting fantasy sort of like look to them, which is like much more old-fashioned than like the new, quite quite muscular, quite powerful looking orcs. I'm used to orcs being kind of ropey and kind of rubbish. And so, casting my mind back to earlier days of fighting fantasy and earlier days of Warhammer, I wanted to make something which was a bit more weird, a bit more with two different things mashed together, rather than, oh, well, this ties into this bit of AOS lore here. So I decided to make a Necromancer. Initially, I wanted to make a Hobgrot that had stolen a load of stuff from an Imperial caravan, but I only had the Blood Bowl nobility sprue, and none of the arms were the right size. So I was trying to put something together. I had a few left over, as you can see in the model there, the Nighthorn sprues. I had a couple of arms, and I stuck those on. I was like, right, okay, he's a wizard, let's go! And you can see I've underlined that by having a ghoul hand coming out of the kit. But let's flip it around. Here he is in all of his majesty. He is some kind of wizard. I didn't really have wizards in the Cruel Boys army. They've got like cooks, and then you've got like the sort of orc wizards, but the Hobgrots seemed a little bit underdeveloped. And so I like the idea of them having the opportunity to cast some spells. You can see this one here. He's got a cloak on. He's put an orc's skull on his head, and kind of made a helmet out of it. And I've got a load of bones. Stuck him up. The one way I could try and make him look heroic was by sticking him on a hero rock. So I have elevated him significantly, and also that gave me some room to have horrible monsters crawling out of there. In terms of what I want to do in future, I've already changed it from this. What I've done, you won't be able to see on the model here, it probably won't show up, but I've built, let me see? You can kind of see there at the back. I've got some of the weird wispy clouds, kind of the ectoplasm off the Mortis Engine kit, and clipped those out, filed them down, got them shaped, and I've got it so there's this kind of weird fog rolling out the rocks in the same direction as his clothes to give him a bit more drama. But I'm pretty much done with the build, I think. I'm looking forward to getting some paint on him. I whisper it, I might try on source lighting. Sorry, on subject lighting from inside the rocks. Or I might just paint it normal.
So when it was, make this Hobgrot a hero, I was looking at, well, what makes a hero character? And unlike the Primaris Lieutenant, I couldn't just have him standing on a rock. That felt a little bit, that's a start. But then it's like, okay, well, he needs a cape, because heroes, not all heroes wear capes, but I've got a few kicking about. I figured, yeah, let's go with that. And probably a big weapon, maybe a spear. That looks cool. What other heroes have we got in AOS? Most of my stuff tends to be Stormcast or Elves. So I was looking at, there's the one on the Toralon, Aventus Firestrike. Then you've got all the sorted different mounts, and it's like mounted heroes. Okay, I could do that. And then Alariel, Teclis, Catacross. Interesting. Okay, yeah, that and then that would include, oh look, five guys. Let's see if we can make this work. And it kind of ran from there. And he has got his cape and a big stick, so it's kind of in there. I mean, one of the other things that I did consider straight away was the riffing on the old Dwarf King with the shield bearers. But I couldn't find a decent shield in my stuff. And while I was mooching about in the bits box, I did find a few. Like I found the spare helmet there and the spear, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's go for it. And it's got a little out of hand. But yes, this is a small 50 mil. So initially I'd started on a 60 because I had one on the desk. But yeah, I've cut down to a 50 mil circle. I can't find a base. I'll have to find one. But I've got my cork and I'm just running with it for there. I know it'll fit. So I kind of cheated a little bit in that initially keeping the 5 Hobgrots, I found some donor legs that I was going to cut off and then put on them. But actually they are a bit smaller. And then I thought, well, that works quite well because Catacross is bigger than his entourage. So can I find enough grots? And turns out, yes, I can. And then it was like, well, how close do we want to go with this? So I'm like, right, well, I need the banner guy, and I need the birdcage guy, and I need the one with particularly pleased with the one with the paper scroll over his head. And then like the warrior guy on the side there, and I found the plate armor knight helm for the grot there as well. So that was quite fun. This dude down in the front, the birdcage guy, is still missing his other arm because I haven't worked out if I'm going to give him some sort of bird or maybe a bug or something. But yeah, I'll work it out. I've got a wine cork for him standing up there, and then I had some like fragments and stuff from other things I've cut up and just kind of sculpted an approximate kind of level, because obviously he's on the tiers. With the Catacross little kind of scene there. So I wanted to try and make sure I had the levels there, and then trying to make sure as well that he was definitely, Catagrot is definitely the focus there, being on the top. So he's the tallest and he's the biggest. So obviously he's in charge. That's how it works, right? And then, yeah, obviously I might try and put some little steps in there and kind of work on the terrain once I've got them all in place. But for now, that's as far as we've got.
So yeah, this is the headpiece of the model. It looks a little bit different to the one in the silhouette because I decided to swap the regular, like, I think it's the Lumineth Warden, or like the Lumineth, the Spearman. I swapped it for the High Warden one because I think that it looks a little bit better. And then because I attached it to the top of the Hobgrot helmet, I wanted to add like a bit more at the, at this side. So I added that High Elf like Crescent Moon to the top as well, just to give like a bit more of, design to it. So yeah, so that's the basing, because the legs of the model are from the Underworld Lumineth Warband, the one that is like, holding himself on one leg, and because it gives that extra flair of the design that I wanted to, and I just had to like raise it a little bit so it was a little bit more straight, to go along with the design I wanted. And then you can also see a little bit of the fire of the staff that is like rotating, or at least that's the idea that I was going for. So the idea for this model is that a while ago I wanted to create kind of Indian or Eastern kind of inspired Seraphon army, using like the big Lord of the Rings elephants as like some kind of like elephants like carrying like a small temple or a shrine. So that was a little bit of the idea, having something Insta-like. So here is my attempt at creating some kind of like Monkey King. So even though it's a little bit difficult to see, that's the face from the Underworld Warband where you have the Monkey Pirate. So hopefully I'll be able to do a little bit of justice. And the idea is just to create that sense of like movement and fluidity while like rotating the staff. And I might change a few of the things because I'm not fully sold on the tassels on the hands, but I wanted to give it something like some movement there as well, so it goes along with the one at the hip. So I'll see what I do with that. But yeah, that's the idea more or less.
How many kits have gone into this in total then?
So if I'm looking at it, so we have the Lumineth one, which is a different one, the legs and the top. And then we have like most of this is just from the Hobgrots. Then the head, I had to drill a little bit the helmet so I could remove the face of it, and I could include the monkey. And then the staff is just from one of the Lumineth spears because they're quite long, so I could take advantage of that. And then the fire, that's from the bolas from the Seraphon, from the Pterodons, yes. And then there are a few more like small details, like these tassels are from the Slanesh Warband, and then the little tree is just from the Lumineth Shrine as well. So just bits and bobs that I use in order to like give more details to the model. So this is almost there. I want to have another look at the smaller details that I've added. So it has some more pouches on the sides. It has, those tassels. At the back, it has a few more details that are taken from the armor, just to give something to the back. Because usually the Hobgrots, they don't have anything on their backs. So that way it gives like a bit more of like heavier armor. And then I want to sculpt a little bit better the flames, so it's like more natural the way that they grow from this stuff. So that's the bit that I want to do, and then I will have a final look around just to see if there are any gaps or anything like that that I need to hide.
So this is a close-up on some of my basing. I love basing models. It's the tiny details that I really, really enjoy. So here in the background, you can see I got a couple of 3D printed critters. So in the background, you can see there is a snake there, coiled and ready to strike. In the foreground, of course, we've got this adorable turtle hiding under a rock. The blue rocks there, that's aquarium pebbles, which are perfect size for basing rocks. And then the leaves there are actually from Alariel. I've got a spare giant beetle, which I'm going to do something with at some point. We were told not to just have a Hobgrot on a giant beetle for this, so I decided to leave that for now. But anyway, that's just some lovely bit of foliage from the Alariel kit. So here he is. Here is my Hobgrot. I came up with a name for him. This isn't set in stone yet. May yet change. But this is Miso Merc. He's a mercenary working for my Gloomsfight Gits. He's got a whip and a javelin, or a trident rather. Which, I mean, the whip in one hand might inform what he a little bit more about the rest of the model, but we'll see that next. Exactly, yeah, of course. So the weapons here are taken from the Tarantulas Brood, because I got the Warcry starter box, the Red Harvest one, and it had a couple of spares from that, and they seemed appropriate for the rest of the Hobgrot sprues. The head there is one of the heads from the Marsh Crawler Sloggoth, another Cruel Boys one, but an actual grot, so it's got the pointy nose sticking out. And here it is. Yes, the chariot itself, you can see in all its glory. You've got the shield there on the front of the chariot from the killer boss with Stabgrot. I wanted to try and fit the Stabgrot on there as well, but in the end it felt like it was too busy, so I've left that out. The chariot itself is from the Snotling pump wagon, which is big enough for 4 or 5 Snotlings, but just about big enough for 1 Hobgrot. A couple of squigs up the front. I actually stripped those fresh because I had a couple of squigs. They were some of the first things I painted, and I really wasn't happy with their paint job. So I thought I'll sacrifice them. I've got a couple of spare anyway, and we'll use them for this. Having only 1 wheel on the ground, I thought is a great way to say this is okay. Squigs are not good cavalry beasts. That you can't predict where they're going to go. Miso Merc here has just about taught them to go in a straight line. I'm sure they get distracted very easily, and they don't really have much care for what's on the wagon behind them. So yeah, I wanted to create a sense of motion of him like careening behind these squigs as he's getting dragged along. So he's got 1 wheel up on a rock and the other one floating in the air. He's about to be launched, I think. And then the squigs as well. One of them's got a foot on the ground. The other one is leaping through the air. I'm really happy with the sense of motion that is in this model. So this is actually the finished model, I think. So next step is just to start painting. I think, yeah, so on this one, on this image, this is a little bit older. I added a few more critters to it. So there's some more snakes and a butterfly as well. Lots and lots of tiny details that I'm sure I'm going to curse myself over the next few weeks when I have to paint them. But it'll all be worth it.
As you can see, in such a short time, every contender we have has been pushing forward conversions in amazing ways. We're about a week and a half into the contest, with June the 18th deadline to get all of their work done. I look forward to catching up next week and working out how far we're moving forwards and how far the imagination can push a single Hobgrots through. Thank you for joining us.